a month. Then it was once a week. Now it's literally every day. But the news they've been releasing as of late has been really, really horrible. To the point where they canceled the Mars program, and then 4 days ago you may have heard this, they canceled the ISS program.
Yes.
They're gonna shut it down. They're gonna shut down the International Space Station. It's like, well, what? There's nothing left to shut down, guys. What else are you doing?
Yes.
If you didn't have the Mars program or the International Space Station, what else is the $20 billion for? And sorry, I get worked up.
What did you do with all that money? Yes.
Yeah.
And now, you were interested in NASA very much when you were young. Did you ever play Orbiter? Did you ever play with that?
The video game Orbiter?
The simulator, the space simulation that's free on the web, and you go and you fly around the space station and all sorts of goodies?
I did not, but that doesn't surprise me.
Oh, I really enjoyed that.
Wow.
But, it's part of the CGI. And one of the things that I find interesting that isn't brought up as much, but I think is an interesting question, in all the pictures that you see of here is the Earth turning, and we can see the lights, and oh, look, it's beautiful, and you can see the curve of the Earth, and where are all the satellites?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a big one for me.
The satellites thing is a huge question, and that is, one, there's no clear consensus of how many satellites are up there. There's anywhere from supposedly 3,000 to 20,000, and that is not an exaggeration. But when you see the mapping, the computer mapping of exactly where these satellites are, this planet, if you believe in planets, should be just bristling with these shiny objects. And yet, when you see like a time lapse from the International Space Station, you don't see a glimpse of anything. You don't see anything flying by, either above or below. Anything being taken from space. I mean, you should see, because these are all made out of highly reflective material, you should see satellites all over the place. Why aren't satellites taking pictures of each other? They're not. Look up, go on Google and look up satellites. Satellite pictures of satellites. Not just satellite pictures of actual satellites. You won't. You'll see artist renderings most of the time, computer animations, and to the point where, because people have said, and I wasn't even on that when I made the clues, I said, I didn't even touch satellites, and people said after a while, what do you think of satellites? And now I say, I don't think there's satellites at all. I don't think there's anything up there, because the satellites have to go through all the flight paths have to go through one organization, and the bigger one, the easier one for people to get their head around is I said, look, if I can't trust the interior footage to the people that are floating around supposedly inside the International Space Station in their khakis and their polo shirts and their socks, why they don't wear shoes, I have no freaking idea. If I can't trust that, if they're not allowed to go up that high, if they have to fake the interior footage of the ISS, then what faith do I have in anything that's really above spy planes? I mean, yeah, we can send weather balloons up to 120,000, 130,000 feet. Everything above that, though, that's NASA. Every image that happens above that is NASA, and we're not getting anything from them that's legit. I mean, look up ISS hoax on the internet. The problem is this. I can boil it down for some people, because some people just still aren't getting it. The problem is this: is that the detection capability of the internet, and I mean the internet hive minds, and by that I mean a lot of bored nerds out there,
amazing,
have now set their focus on real life events. Beforehand, it was just movies. If anyone has any doubts, go to moviemistakes.com or the 20 or 50 other sites that all they do is, nerds, they just pick on movie production, because no matter how much money you spend on a movie, you're going to make production mistakes, because movies are shot out of order.
Right.
They're not shot chronologically. They're shot for cost effectiveness.
Not continuity.
And so if a coffee cup moves from one side of the room to the other in a single frame or scene, and the actor doesn't do it, they're going to find it.
Yes.
And the problem is that all of a sudden they started doing it to every movie and every television show, but then they started doing it to like real life events, real life things, which shouldn't. It's like, well, that's real life. It's not like anything's going to be weird there, because it's real life. It's like trying to find mistakes in the news, right? There's no mistakes in the news. That's real. It's all the truth. But then they started finding mistakes. And when it came to stuff like space station footage, they started finding lots of little production mistakes that should not be there. And you only have to find one or two before you start, and then it starts snowballing. Then people start looking at everything and overanalyzing stuff. But there's a lot of interesting out of NASA to where you got to wonder what they're spending the money on, because some of the stuff is rookie mistakes. You don't they're there.
That's the whole thing, is that there are a lot of things happening out there that people don't realize are not real. They're staged events to try to get people swayed in one direction or another. And since they've gotten away with it this long, then let's try some other things.
Yeah.
And this is where the can of worms, it's only the beginning. What do you see as what's going to happen that can open up even more things in the direction of expansiveness as far as people's minds are concerned, or relationships to their lives?
Well, with this, we've still got a ways to go. But here's what's been happening so far. We started out with just putting a lot of questions out there. The big questions to science, saying can you answer this? Tell us about the Earth from space. Tell us about why there are no movies. Tell us about why there's lack. There should be mountains of evidence on the scientific side that aren't there. And we put the question out there, and we thought for sure somebody would just stomp on it. But unfortunately, they haven't. And so, in fact, the opposite started happening, because when I started asking for whistleblowers, I started getting professionals, both from the military sector and the private sector, that have come forward and started talking and saying, look, everything that we see with our instruments confirms what you see, and that is the big three things. One is that the Earth apparently has no curve to it whatsoever that anyone can even detect right now, and it should be there. Two, that it's not spinning at all, and there's no instrument out there that's actually showing that it's spinning. And three, that the maps, the big global map appears to be very, very wrong, especially in the southern hemisphere, which would make sense, because anything outside of the equator, or in this case, below the equator, depending on which model you're looking at, would be greatly exaggerated, greatly stretched out. So once the professionals started coming forward, it really started silencing people, and this thing started taking on legs of its own, which was really, really great. And then people started doing their own experiments, and now what we're doing, we're kind of waiting for is what I wasn't kidding when I said that. Some people thought I was joking, and that was waiting for people to kind of come out of the closet on this. And I'm not trying to equate this with homosexuality in any way, shape, or form, but the comparisons are strikingly similar, which is there's a lot of people out there that are into flat Earth, but they don't know who they can talk to about it.
Exactly.
Because it's so insane that it's not like you can go to a party. Now, I've, of course, heard of people that have gone to parties and say, oh, yeah, they get drunk. It's like, oh, yeah, flat Earth, that's a great thing, and they just get shot full of holes. But there's going to be some celebrities in one way or the other, be it, actors, musicians, or politicians, or somebody from the artistic community, somebody with a lot of followers and a lot of tweets. And that's what I'm kind of waiting for next. In fact, What's-Her-Face just came out the last couple days. A perfect example, Tia Tequila. And she's totally on this. She's putting herself out there already. And for a lot of people, it's like being the first person on the dance floor. Nobody wants to be the first person on the dance floor, especially at a wedding. But once the first couple people get out there, people are like, oh yeah, I love this song. And then it doesn't take much to do, and that's what we're kind of waiting for, is for celebrities to even come forward and talk, even to make fun of it. Kind of do it in a sort of like a half joking manner, even if they're trying to test the water. It's like, oh, this flat Earth is ridiculous. Who's with me? One of those things. It's like, I'd love to see that with somebody that had 5-10 million followers, because they all of a sudden expose people to it. Because if you go in, the great thing about it now, especially with social media, is there's so much content out there.
Yes.
That if you type in, I'm not kidding. When we started this back in February of 2015, when you typed in flat Earth, no filters in YouTube, you maybe got 50,000 hits, maybe, as far as relevant search criteria things. When you type it in, like right now, as we're talking on the phone right now, you said same thing, flat Earth, it's around 2.4 million.
Yes.
And there is so many hours, and these aren't short videos either.
No, these are long ones.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, and so there's people are not shy about putting 2 hours in there. And I mean, I personally myself, I've put couple hundred hours in there, and it is a lot of stuff that you can absorb. And I keep getting the same emails over and over again, and that is, once they start, because it's so enticing, it's like you're trying to dig a hole. It's like a dog burying a bone in the backyard. Once you start digging, you start digging faster and faster because you think you can get through it. It's like, well, if I spend another day on it, maybe, another day, either maybe I'll disprove it or I'll find some more stuff. And people keep treating it like this brand new, shiny topic, like a conspiracy. It's never been talked about before, which is, of course, the ultimate irony, because it's the oldest conspiracy there is.
Yes.
That because everybody knew it. 4,500 years, everybody knew the Earth was flat. It was only in the last 500 years that we changed it.
Yes.
And now it appears to be changing back, and that's for me, that's the kick, and that is that's what I'm trying to work on now, is trying to decipher the next moves on the chessboard, which are why now. Why are you opening this sucker up now? What else is going to be tied to this? Because it feels like, it's almost like I can hear music coming over that hill. Something big is coming, and it is going to be really, really awesome. It's going to scare a lot of people, but it is going to be amazing when this thing comes out.
I know, and it's always hard for pioneers, and imagine the people who knew about this for years. What a lonely world for them, because no one could really listen to them, and this is so obvious and real that it's hard to turn your head from it. And then you wonder, all right, there are men who are still running for their lives because they've been talking about it. There are some astronomers and other NASA folk who've also disappeared or died because they were about to tell something that someone didn't want them to tell. There's some sort of vested interest, and it's still out there. And there's a reason that... Now, see, I can look at it a different way, too. If God decided he wanted to put a lie on the entire world, do you think he can do it? Well, of course, he's God. So This is what's happened, and it's always good because it's a German word, Gott, just got changed to God. It just means good. And so it's going to be good if it's going. So this deception being exposed is wonderful. And people who have a vested interest, who are afraid they're going to lose everything in their lives, just change your perspective slightly and you'll see what good there is in it. I mean, just listening to you, being able to lay out the information so quickly, easily, and eruditely is enough proof in being able to get the answers quickly and understand, not just understand it, grok it, really get it. I really appreciate being able to hear you talk about some of the things that you're most interested in and the important points. Is there anything else? Is there any fascinating event that stands out in your mind, or anything that you're expecting, or?
Well, again, it's going to be, I'm not gonna lie and say that it's all going to be roses and champagne, because it's not. There's a chance here. I put most of the fault of the problems of the world on men and the powers that be, and I would like to think that they would do the right thing and turn this into something wonderful. However, don't take my word for it. I would like to see that, but the odds say that they're going to do the opposite and try to turn this into some sort of giant control mechanism. If that's the case, just be ready for it, because I think ultimately in the end, I think the people are going to be the ones that are going to be able to change the tipping point.
Well, that's the point. That is the point. Yes.
Yeah. If we go into it and stay positive and stay...
Well, I think that's one of the prophecies also, is that in the middle of the strife and confusion, the real, true world, begins to take its form. And that's the safeguard of not listening to those that want to scare you all the time so that they can have a meal off of your emotions or something. We just turn our faces to, hey, wait a minute, this can be so much better. And it is up to us, because the psychopaths are never going to get it. They look like a bigger group than they actually are. They have lots of strong arm abilities, but once we understand who we actually are, then where's the problem? You know, and that's why you encourage me so much.
Well, thank you.
And I really thank you so much for the work that you've been doing, for the encouragement of other people, for the enlightening of so many people's minds, and for being on the front running of this wonderful, explosive controversy.
Well, thank you.
It's a world changer.
Well, I'm hoping, and 2016, I'm going to give it everything I got.
Well, good, and thank you so much for talking to us, and I want to get this out as soon as I possibly can. And thank you once again, and safe journeys and more expansiveness to you and yours.
Thank you very much for having me, and God bless.
God bless you as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.